Good evening. I'm Dr. Webb, and I'm with you here from the University of Fairfax. And I've got with me tonight Dr. Kenneth Williams, who's going to be talking to us about data breaches, our involvement. To tell you a little bit about our esteemed guest tonight, I'll tell you, Dr. Kenneth Williams. Also, in the event of questions, now if you have any questions, please submit them to us on Twitter. And use the hashtag cybersecuritylive, and we'll get to the questions at the end of this broadcast. Okay. And again, I'm Dr. James Webb. Our guest, Dr. Kenneth Williams. Now, to tell you a little bit about Dr. Williams. Now, Dr. Williams is a retired Army information technology officer, and he has over 27 years in the field of cybersecurity. Now, and he also has 7 years as an Army civilian focused on cybersecurity compliance assessments. He's been a business owner and consultant in information technology and cybersecurity. Now, IT and cybersecurity faculty member since 2010. He has, in the way of education, he has a Master's of Science and a PhD in Information Assurance and Cybersecurity from Capella University. Now, when he did his PhD, he wrote his dissertation, which had a focus on cybersecurity governance, conducted a study in the DoD environment. Now, DoD is the Department of Defense. He also currently has a book that's pending to be released next month in February, which is focused on cybersecurity breach and the use of cybersecurity governance framework to mitigate organizational risks. Recent publication and a panel member to resolve the national cybersecurity issues. And right now, Dr. Williams resides in Northern Virginia with his wife and kids, and he's been living there since 2006, following his military retirement. So, without any further ado, I'd like to pass the mic over to Dr. Kenneth Williams. Dr. Williams?
Thank you, Dr. Webb. And welcome, everyone. Welcome to our talk today. And today our focus is on data breaches. Data breaches is primarily that has been in the news for such a long time. So the first thing we'll talk about is the focus of this that I'm going to argue tonight is focus on the sharing of data. So the loss of human privacy and valuable information is attributed to our activities in cyberspace. And this has led to heightened level of concern with discussion about the need for cybersecurity and the protection of valuable information. Public incidents such as the recent Equifax data breach has contributed to the concern and call for levels of assurance against data breach. Yet it continues without clear indication or indicators of cessation. So what is to be done? What actions can one take to protect against this risk of danger? Should an attempt to address this question begin with an examination of the source? And could this source exist in the very actions of the human civilization, as explained through our behaviors? These questions are not addressed and considered as a gap in our literature and our research, and is the focus of our talk today, which will begin with an examination of current literature, illustrating the nature of humans to share information over several centuries, and now serves as a nemesis for activities in cyberspace. So for my talk today, I will point to the human behavior, tributary source or the primary source of our breach today, presenting this argument. So we'll seek we'll seek to examine the behaviors of humans through our behaviors. The first thing that I'm going to talk about here is the motivation, our motivation to share. And our motivation to share is explained in numerous theories throughout the history of humans. There are theories concerning the motivation of humans to share information, all of which suggest that the actions that we take cannot be curtailed. Information sharing is a prominent and distinct human behavior. To begin this discussion, it should be noted that humans are shared since the dawn of civilization or the establishment of our social system. It is established that this knowledge sharing is essential to the function of our social system, but does not come without a price and has a measured impact. There is both conscious and unconscious impact on human emotions, attitudes, and consequently actions that affect this knowledge sharing. One can observe this impact in common cyber risk issues such as cyberbullying and other privacy breaches that stems from human propensity to share information that can be explained by the scientific discipline of sociobiology, along with others such as empathy and altruism, expectancy value theory, the social impact theory, which would all be discussed in my talk today. So we begin with sociobiology. Sociobiology is a scientific discipline focused on the explanation of social behavior, the forms in humans and animals. It is rooted in Charles Darwin's theory of organic evolution. This Darwin theory argues that the gene is the source of the social behavior and is influenced by the environment, suggesting that sharing is an intrinsic human reaction that is linked to humans with similar motivation or genetic relationships, assuring the transformation of value to future generations or groups with similar interests. This expectation of future value is categorized as a repository or standard, where a future value is expected for one action or contribution. Empathy and altruism. This theory itself, it suggests that the sharing of information is something that is selfless, and humans are entitled, or human are inclined to do this, to be involved in this behavior. Humans are empathetic as a being towards those that they like, and will share information cost. Humans are also inclined to provide information to individuals, organizations, and to causes that they like or see as a value, similar to the way that they help a loved one or a sibling. It is normal to provide information to a family member or to a loved one, especially if you're close to them. Humans could be less altruistic when they are in a hurry, or if they are faced with a crisis or have to make a decision between another individual and themselves, especially when there's no tangible value associated with that. So in those instances, they will not be as inclined to share the information itself. The other motivation of humans to share information is measured in expectancy value theory. This theory itself is a motivation to share, and it is driven by the value of return. There's evidence in social media circles, such as Facebook and others, where something like a like is appreciated. People's behavior is a factor of their intentions, what they want, their competency, what they can do themselves, and the limitation of the environment for what they're allowed to do. So, and that is normally limited to the external environment. The fourth theory of motivation is on the social impact theory. Humans also share information to conform to a group environment. We do that naturally. And this is similar to the environment of a job or a social media environment, such as Facebook. These social processes determine individual behaviors such as the decision to share while a member of the group. Sharing information with a superior or group with the belief that it may influence a future promotion or group identification to establish a sense of belonging, and sharing this information to confirm to one's value system. All of this are intrinsic values of humans and propensity to behave, or humans to exhibit behavior, which leads to my argument that because we love to share, we are engaged in this behavior in the internet today. But in itself, it presents this paradox of sharing each other while we also value our privacy as individuals. So because we are concerned about the online privacy, we at times want to share information, but when our information is breached, institute things, or we ask individuals like our policymakers to institute or to do something to protect ourselves. The reaction from that or from policymakers are legislations aimed to protect our privacy or protect our actions or limit our information on the web. And when that is instituted, the fact that we love to share is limited, because by the nature of the fact that we are closing on the information, it becomes this dichotomy against the fact that we are out there wanting to share that information. It's realized when we do this. The discussion of a paradox in ourselves further stems from the fact that as Americans, we have the right to privacy, such as the protection from targeted advertisement stemming from the use of technology such as a wireless geolocators that some of us are engaged in. For example, when we go to a restaurant and we take a picture of where we are and share with our friends. So while we're announcing where we are, and that technology then captures that information, or someone figures out that we're using that information and they use that against us, in itself is a paradox. So the sharing of knowledge in itself has an historical perspective. Discovered in the research, knowledge has an important role for the social presence of human. Also important for organizations. Of all the organization assets, knowledge itself is considered the most important to maintain a competitive edge. Knowledge importance was viewed with philosophers such as Plato and Aristotle and their study of ethics, science, politics, and other matters as early as 428 BC. The sharing of information was prominent with the discovery of 20,000 years ago in the Luxor cave drawing, depicting human hunting. From that to the use of hieroglyphics in 600 BC to the use of the Morse code in 1835, highlighted the importance of information sharing. In our modern age today, it is argued that humans find value in providing the information or using the information provided to them, or that is freely available on the internet. And this information itself has a concern for privacy. It's more good or bad. From a good perspective, it is useful for things like, or for gathering information about others, but in itself is risky. And given awareness that information that is shared can be harmful to the owner, and in spite of that possible risk, us as humans, we still share the information because we accept that risk because we perceive it to be of value, and others look forward to this knowledge access. So reciprocally, I share the information and someone already said the information as well. So this knowledge, it can be noted, as noted, can become an obligation and a burden. The constant and repetitive behavior of checking for email, social media posts, and Twitter news is time consuming. And the more demand, and it demands a lot of our time. And the fact is that the more information that is given out and made available for access is shared with information out there or with sources that could be used to breach our privacy. And this is all done in an unknowing manner. And this unknowing action by humans itself feeds the thirst of others, set to harness the valuable information of that they see as a free and available resources. So this free knowledge itself that is available on the internet could then turn around to be harmful to humans itself. And there's a lot of free information that is out there based on our action, in the amount of, in the manner of some 2.5 quadrillion bytes of data that is produced daily on the internet. Okay, so the data breach itself is ongoing in a rapid manner, and the knowledge and action that are divulged with this data breach itself gives us all a point to discuss, or to be concerned about. We should be, and questions such as should data be accessed and information be shared are of concern. The most recent of concerns that we had related to things like Equifax and the breach from the Office of Personnel Management. The Equifax breach was announced in September 2017, revealing credit file of over 182,000 people. The OPM breach itself jeopardized the social security number and other personnel information of 21.5 million current and former federal workers. A report released by Risk-Based Security and reported in the well-known Data Loss DB source noted 3,930 incidents reported during 2015 that exposed over 736 million records itself. And this was noted as a record breaker. So data breaches occur in all sectors of civilization, to include academia, government, and business, and it also comes from the individual user. In the academic institution itself, data breaches may be attributed to the open nature of the environment, but it is designed to allow a wide variety of access. In the academic environment itself, the impact of data breach is not as bad as it is in a public environment, because in an academic environment, it is more open for the student to access that data itself. Okay? Sorry, slide back one. In social media sector, to include e-commerce, breach of information results in harm to individuals, resulting in emotional distress, in anxiety, and financial loss, to include a loss of trust from corrupted credit report. Numerous actions have been taken to curtail and manage this risk that range from privacy legislation to personal lawsuits with measured impact. Most actions have been taken by individuals against large organizations and resulted in financial settlements of undisclosed amount. And most are either settled or dismissed due to inability to prove the damage. Either way, the personal information is still available for access on the internet due to the multiple locations that the data can be stored and archived. Now, with that thought, one would ask the question, well, what happens with my data when it's released out there, and what is the lifespan. So the lifespan of the data is a concern of everyone. I mean, or should be a concern of everyone. And the question about what happened to that information once it's out in the internet out there can be sourced from the aftermath of recent breach, such as what occurred with the U.S. Office of Personnel Management. As a case study, when this breach occurred, OPM noted that there's a high degree of confidence that information that was used in the security investigation was breached. That information included Social Security number and dates of birth. And to analyze what occurred after that, OPM issued, a 18 months free credit monitoring response. And this should be noted that this free monitoring may have the intent of limiting or eliminating the risk of life of the lifespan of the data breach. Thinking along the line that months to monitor your credit, it will mitigate any use of your credit. But one must ask the question, well, what happened? What happened with that information, and how is it used beyond that? So most experts in security disagree that this offer of free credit itself is able to mitigate the malicious access to information. Additionally, not everyone that is offered a free monitoring actually signs up and use the service. So that in itself does not mitigate damage against oneself or others. Fraud monitoring should be designed to detect breaches after, is designed to detect breaches after they occur versus to prevent them from occurring. Some individuals also advocate individual freeze their credit to prevent unauthorized creation of new credit. But this does not prevent the use of the data once it's released. So the question is, how is information? How do you protect our information? How do we go about and engage on the action to prevent to protect our information itself? And what type of protection should be in place within an organization or an individual to ensure the protection of this valuable information? The answer to this question may depend on the specific organization or individual. Some organization may have total control of their environment, such as governments or other organizations concerned about privacy or commercial secrets. Regardless of the stated protection, all should take steps to ensure that information is not accessible by unauthorized parties. Businesses are vulnerable to databases if connected to the internet. Actions should be in place to develop a security plan and have an incident response in place. And this would allow for the reduction of risk associated with attacks from malicious users on the internet. Other actions from nations such as the European Union and the US have implemented strict laws that organizations must follow to protect this information. In the case of the EU action, the data protection law was implemented in 2015 with mandatory organizational requirements, such as a robust contingency plan, such as the requirement for robust contingency plan. Under the law, responsible organization officials are required to notify affected individuals within 72 hours of a data breach that impact that information. There are also associated fines with this, between 2 and 5% of the annual global revenue of the organization. Within the US, legislations such as HIPAA and other executive legislative act are implemented by government to aid in the protection of protection of the data. Organizations can take actions such as searching sources as like the dark web that could have information, as we just talked about, where if your information is out there and is breached, even though you have credit freeze and even though you have mitigating fraud protection, that and it's out there either as an individual or as an organization, it may be available in the dark web. That's the web that's not normally available in a regular Google search. So organizations, even the individuals themselves, is probably more costly. But if an organization is concerned about the data that's out there, they could go up there and search and see what it is so they can understand what are the risks associated with that as well. Okay. Now, how is this information protected, or how is it controlled? There are things such as a LifeLock privacy monitor that's evolved to aid in the recovery of information released in a data breach. The LifeLock privacy monitor technology is designed to search common people's websites and other advertisement-based websites for personal identifiable information, similar to like going into the dark web. While the LifeLock itself has great promise, LifeLock privacy monitor, it does not come without a challenge, such as the right for access to the data, as discussed earlier. So even though the information is out there and LifeLock could locate it, then the counter argument is once the information is out in the web, First Amendment right gives one the constitutional right to access that information, which goes back to the original argument of, okay, our behaviors are in self-contributing to that. So this challenge has the capacity to limit individuals from suppressing their information. This First Amendment argument, suppress the information, but yet one has access, the right to access that. Additionally, the control of this information further challenges the current technology era because data is stored in multiple locations at once. Once the data is out there, it's stored, and it's erasing the data does not mean that the data is gone, because the data is out in the web, it itself can be copied, replicated, and taken off of the web itself. So actions to erase it, to erase the information, such as if you find information with a LifeLock monitor or the organization that goes out there and find that information itself, that are offline, it's difficult, to find. The internet itself is also resistant to control because the argument of data protection provides the notion that the internet is born for free speech, and this is a conflict between privacy rights and the free speech of the internet, both of which stands equal in the very existence and viability of this free resource. That is used by billions, across the world. Humans as an arbitrator of this policy understands and uses this freedom of speech and privacy. In most society, one can argue that is diametrically opposed to this symbiotic relationship of freedom and privacy, basically. So when one is free to speak the privacy of others, violation may occur because the permission itself of one having the permission to speak assumes that there's a privacy argument against this. But when a third party is involved, then there's no way to mitigate that because two people really can't keep a secret. And then there's a desire to advertise. So this intense desire to advertise is one of the resistant factors on the internet, and arguably is a threat to the free speech against laws such as the Can-Spam Act itself, which limits media control and the inability to protect the privacy if one intends for this to be so. Okay? So Controlling this and not eliminating the use of the data. There are numerous efforts to control the use of data, but none that can assure 100% controls, or none that could have 100% assurability that it will be controlled. The efforts are all challenged by the notion that data is transferred in the form of bits around the world and resides in multiple storage locations. Often the data is removed from the storage locations and has no possibility of retrieval, as I discussed before. One major fact is that the notion that content platform and information distribution outlets are rapidly converting. So the content itself and the distribution are converting, and as they do, the information is going to replicate itself out there. Conversions means that information is increasingly being unbundled from its traditional distribution platform and can find many paths to the consumer. Information can be copied and retransmitted instantaneously once it leaves its source with minimal assurance of retrieval. So one effort to control this data flow is education, awareness, and digital literacy. This approach offers a less restrictive alternative to the solution that is currently a mystery. Online education and media literacy are efforts promoted to champion digital citizenship. The notion of digital citizenship promotes critical thinking and self-awareness of actions related to the release of information or behaviors primarily. Both the user and the individual trust the information and the use of that information. And the action, a self-censoring action itself could mitigate how much information is put out there. Privacy enhancement technology, or PET, are also enlisted in an effort to control data flow. Tools such as advertisement blockers are a part of most common operating system and often configured as the default. So, controlling our data is a fleeting effort. In conclusion, the desire to share information has existed throughout the civilization of humans and has served as a double-edged sword. It's a double-edged sword throughout our civilization. It is a natural human tendency to share information and an increased desire for privacy. This diametrically opposing factor does little to solve the issue of data breach and offers few options to the individual or the organizations entrusted with this valuable information. Various legislation has been offered to solve the issue with limited access, success in our daily life today. So until this solution is implemented successfully, individuals and organization actions are limited to education, awareness, and enforcement of these rules designed to protect its information. More research is warranted on this action, and of course, our behaviors itself. This is a reference from my research. Subject to your question, I will turn it over to Dr. Webb.
Oh, wow. I mean, that is great. Dr. Williams, we really do appreciate that. At this time, what I'd like to ask is, again, for our audience, if you have any questions, please submit them through Twitter at #CybersecurityLive. And at that point, Mrs. Hardy will take those questions and present them and pass them over here to Dr. Williams for us. So again, at this point, I'm going to pass it to Ms. Hardy, and so she can filter the questions into Dr. Williams.
Thank you. At this time, there are no questions submitted. If the viewers have questions and are thinking or have comments, they are welcome to submit their questions at #CybersecurityLive. And at a later time, we can send those questions to Dr. Williams that he can answer later on. But if you have any right now, please submit them now. Okay, well, again, thank you, Dr. Williams, for that great presentation. And if anyone has any questions or comments, please submit them at #cybersecuritylive on Twitter. Thank you.